It's Rob, and this is Man Sewing, and today I'm teaching guitar straps, custom guitar straps, covered guitar straps, and some camera straps too. So I gotta go drop this axe off over at band practice and come on back and run you through the supplies, so I'll see you in just a few moments. All right, the lowdown on the supplies, whether you're making a camera strap or a guitar strap, are going to be very, very similar, okay? So the first thing I want you to have is some rock and roll ready or camera ready fabric. Quarter yard is the bare bones minimum. A half yard you're going to feel a lot better about. I have a very heavyweight fusible interfacing or stabilizer, and I'm going to go ahead and use this to kind of fatten up the strap on the inside. So you only need a quarter yard of that. We're going to make 3 2-inch wide strips. If you're making adjustable buckles or adjustable straps, you're going to need some hardware, and I'm going to detail all that out for you in a few seconds, okay? We'll just set that aside for now. You might be using some chunks of leather, heavy-duty fabrics. You might be using some denim. These will be for the ends or the heads of the strap. And if you don't know how to make your own heads, so I just had kind of originally freestyled these heads out and then sent them over to the art department, and they have created a wonderful free download template for you. So the link to that's down in the description below. So just take that, enjoy it, share it with your friends. That's a gift from us to you. But don't forget, when it comes time to make those Christmas cookies, the art department loves chocolate chip cookies, okay? So just do me that favor if you will. Rotary cutter, ruler, basic supplies, that kind of thing. It's gonna be a snap. It was actually so easy I got started without you. I'm sorry, but I did. I already cut my quarter yard of fabric into 2 4.5-inch wide strips. Most guitar straps and camera straps are about 2 inches wide, okay? So that's what we're gonna build today, is a 2-inch wide strap. So the first thing I wanna do is get rid of these selvages. So I'm just gonna simply stack them up and prepare to cut them out of my way. Set my templates aside as well. Okay. In the long run, we only need about 60 inches of strap. So if you cut a little extra off, it's not going to be the end of the world there. I'm going to take my fabrics and put them right sides together. I'm using a 1/4-inch seam allowance, okay? Because like I said, I've got 4.5-inch strips and they want to turn into a 2-inch tube. So I'm just joining that now. And then what I'm going to do is set this up to make the tube. So I'm just now folding it over right sides together. And I traditionally make the entire tube and then I go ahead and cut it down. I do not have a reason behind that. I just do it that way. I could pretend like maybe I was going to make little, I'm thinking on the fly here while sewing. I'm thinking maybe you can make film canister holders for your SD cards. Whew, 90 inches, just like that. Now, while I was sewing, those of you who have enjoyed some of my other videos out there know that I have a trick for turning tubes. That trick I forgot to do today, but I've got another trick that I was going to use. A big long yardstick. I'm going to use this to feed the interfacing in here in a second, but let's see if I can make this work to my advantage. I'm going to try to slide this in, and I'm going to grab myself a safety pin. Off the ground. And I'm going to safety pin the top of this, one little side, to the hole in my yardstick. Then I'm going to keep feeding this through. Now I'm gently letting that end start to catch. Oh, you are watching this happen for the first time. I love it. Okay. Now, let me unpin this. And I'm going to get this out of the way for a second. So I've just stitched the sides together all the way down the seam, and I've turned it right sides back out. And before I press it, I'm going to go ahead and cut it down to size. Now I'm using my 35-inch board here. So it's pretty easy. Like I said, I want 60 inches. So there's 35. Right? And if I come all the way to the end, that would be 70. So I come to the 10-inch mark. And remember, this is going to be the adjustable style strap in the long run. So we've got a few inches to work within. So that's been taken care of. Now I have less fabric I have to deal with for pressing. Okay, so I'm going to press this down. Some of you might be thinking also, hey, he didn't finish the ends underneath. That was intentional. When I slide the heads in, that's when I'm going to finish those ends underneath, okay? So don't worry, it's not that I've also forgotten that step, but I'm intentionally waiting for that one today. This will form the inside of the strap, so no one's going to see this seam. And then the next step, we're going to prepare our interfacing. So with our interfacing, like I said earlier, we're going to need 3 strips, just 2 inches wide. If you want to make them just shy of 2 inches wide to make it easier to feed through your tube, you can, but we're going to use that same yardstick to feed the interfacing through as well. But we are going to have to join the interfacing together, or you can go out and buy yourself a 1 2/3 yards, I guess it's technically 2 yards of interfacing so that you have a 60-inch strip. But I was using regular width interfacing, and it's roughly 22 inches wide. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just cut myself my 2-inch strips, and actually it was this way. So I just do yay. And when I put these together, I'm going to run a zigzag, and I'm going to butt the joints instead of stacking the joints on there. So what that means is I'm going to just take these 2 pieces here, and I'm going to place them next to each other and sew them. I'm not going to lay them on top of each other like that. Okay? So we'll come on over to the machine real quick, and I'm going to set this thing up for a zigzag. And now I'm going to just feed this through. I'd like to do a much wider zigzag than that. There we go. It won't take much to add the strength you need here, and we're going to top stitch this once it's in place. So this is just to keep the pieces together, and like I said, I've already created one here. So the next real magic trick I would like to teach you is, once again, the ruler, or the yardstick I should call that thing, and a piece of blue tape. So now what we're doing, and I found, because the fabric might try to put up a little bit of a fight as we go through there, I like to set this thing up so that I've got a little bit of yardstick before the interfacing starts. And I also like to soften my edge like that in case there's any, if you're using like a wooden yardstick and there's any weirdness on the ends, that's not going to be any good for you. Now we've got that. And I generally have the fuse side on the upside, or the non-seam side. I'm just going to wiggle that in there and slide just like that. And the reason I use the yardstick for that is it really helped me keep my interfacing nice and flat as I then pull the tube over like yay. And now we're going to remove our blue tape. You know, if we used duct tape, you wouldn't have been able to get it out of there, right? Then we remove our yardstick. And now I'll spend a little bit of time making sure everything's nice and flat in here and working everything, because the next thing I'm doing is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to press with the iron that fusing. A little slower because I want to really bond that interfacing. And this is what gives all of our stability. The first time I made a strap, I didn't put any interfacing in it at all, and I put my guitar on it, just kept stretching and stretching and stretching. Perfect, just what I wanted there. Right to the end. Okay, that's awesome. Now, at this point, we need to discuss a little bit more about the hardware and a little bit more what's going to happen with the adjustability, right? So, when I'm talking hardware, if we do want to make it an adjustable strap, we would need one of these D-rings or this rectangular ring and some sort of tri-buckle, they'll call that, or this is called a tri-slide. So you could use something like that. And then also, on our templates we had created originally, we have 2 different lengths of the heads. So these are fit for 2 inches across there, no problem. But one's a little bit longer because down the road for an adjustable strap, you might find yourself making this. Okay? So there's something like this right here came from the longer of the 2. So with that said, let's talk about how to make the heads so that you can then choose how you're going to set up your adjustability for your straps. And when dealing with the heads, here is a real guitar strap. Okay? The real guitar straps that are adjustable, you need to have some way that the material can slide through, and that's where the metal comes in, or it's done through the leather. This is going to stretch a little bit, so this is not my favorite style of construction, but this is one of those big slides, or those pieces of the tri-slide like that gives you the adjustability. So when you're making heads, I experimented with all kinds of different stuff. I experimented with some of the faux leather. I had used that on a fun little pillow a while back. And to me, that's wonderful for a camera, but I certainly wouldn't hang my axe from that. You know what I'm saying? A heavy guitar would not be secure. I tried to make one just like they had made, and I had that head there, and it stretched a bit, but then I reinforced it with an extra piece on the back, and with that extra piece on the back, I could hang an acoustic guitar from that, but probably not an electric guitar, right? And then the other option is not adjustable at all. So on this particular one, this is made for my camera, I have both heads stitched into the end, and if that be the case, you just simply use 2 of the smaller templates instead of 1 of each. What I've been experimenting with recently, I wanted to find supplies that you might possibly have readily available. So I actually had found this sample book that had a bunch of this kind of leathery backed suede, and I ended up making this head right here out of that, and it worked pretty good. It doesn't have any stretch or real flex, and that's what I'm checking out to make sure it's not going to break on me in the middle of a rock show, you know what I'm saying? So for something like that, I've already made the long head, but I'm using 2 layers, and I put them back to back so that when I trim them, they look nice, right? So you could technically do this by pinching them together, taking out your scissor. I will come back and get that little triangle piece in a second. Like that there, and I'm still keeping them together, and I can just bump in the little triangle, trying not to cut myself, of course. And like that. Now, once that's happened, the next thing I do from this, because it's not a perfect cut, is I then come over and I top stitch, because I'm going to top stitch the layers together, and then if I want to trim again, I can. So I'm going to line this needle up as close to the edge as I can, and I'm going to go nice and slow, lock that stitch in. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put it back to the straight stitch mode. That's going to make the stitch a lot prettier. And here we go. As I'm coming around the edge, the corner is the most difficult spot for the top stitching. So if you come down to that area, you want to go ahead and drop your needle so you can do a slight pivot. And then from this rounded part, I'm just watching one mark on my foot, and then what I've learned as I approach the tip of the head, right? What I want you to do is I've got my finger pinching right at the tip there, and then now I'm literally pulling it around with this hand, trying to keep that stitching equidistant from the outside edge. I'm no genius at top stitching, so I'll tell you, it wouldn't be a terrible thing for me to use a matching color thread. But it will do the job. Just like that. Okay, so I've got some nice top stitching, and now I can come in with both scissor blades nice and close and trim it down so that it looks like it was done by a pro, like that. Back end doesn't matter because it's going to slide into the strap, and I think we're ready for that. So this here is the short end. The short end always goes into the strap. Okay, I'm coming down to where the interfacing went all the way to the end, and I'm sliding it. And it does not matter which side the head ends up on of the interfacing. It's going to go inside there, right? And I also want to finish these edges. So I told you I'd do that for us. I'm just going to roll them under right now. It's probably about a 1/2 inch inside. I want to have plenty of fabric hidden down in there. And then as I slide the head in, it does the rest of the work, meaning it pushes it all nice and tidy. Okay, so you've got it just like that, nice and easy, right? From there, I'm coming back to the machine and I'm going to run a line of stitching right across the top. And now I'm going to pivot right at the corner. And now I'm going to top stitch all the way down, okay? Okay, now I'm about 2 to 3 inches away from the end and it's decision making time. If I am making an adjustable buckle, I can literally top stitch around the corner and head on back up to the first head, because what goes where the other head is the tri-slide buckle or the tri-buckle, right? If I want to make this a non-adjustable side, generally what's going to happen then is I don't want to top stitch it closed, I want to slide the other head up in here. So what I'm going to do to help you understand the way to put the hardware on for adjustable, I'm going to assume that you're comfortable with making a non-adjustable side. So let me repeat non-adjustable. You would have had 2 heads that had the shorter tail, not this long tail. And as I approach this side, I would literally roll the edges under of my strap. I would slide that second head in, and then I would come right around the corner and head on back up to where I started from at the top stitch. Okay? I think that makes sense for all of you. I'm setting up for adjustable, so I'm going to swing that corner of the top stitch, but I'm not going to have a head in there. Needle down for the pivot. And I'll see you at the top of this strap. And I'm getting ready to stop that, so when I get near the top, I'm going to get ready to backstitch. So I backstitch to lock it in nice and tight. And I also like to go ahead, and I'll just show you here on this finished one. Sometimes it's fun to make like a rectangular stitch or an X stitch, something to help secure it. So you can do that a little bit later in the finishing, but I want to talk you through putting in this hardware, right? So we're going to do this part itself actually next. You have a top to your strap. The top to the strap is where the seam is not, right? So with the top to your strap up, you're coming to the end down here, and some of these buckles have a bit of an arc to them. Well, that arc is the top, right? Or in something like this, the hardware, let's see if I can do this so you can see that this looks like the bottom, right? Maybe you can see it better that way, and or that is the top. So this one has the tri-buckle in it, so let's use this regular standard here. So I'm going to go up and over, and I'm going to come back down. So that's going to lock that in and finish it just like that for the top, right? I'm going to flip it over, and I don't need to get real close to my presser foot for this. I don't need to put my needle at risk. Now I'm going to roll that edge, so that is also giving me a nice cleaned finished edge. If you're spatially challenged in your machine, you could certainly use a zipper foot right now, but we don't need to do that here because we've got plenty of room underneath this little baby lock. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to backstitch to lock it, come forward all the way across, and backstitch a couple times to lock it again. And it was that simple. Okay, so now my buckle is totally secured at the top there, or my adjustable buckle is secured at the top, but we only have one head on the strap. What are you going to do about that? We're going to make a second head, and that's probably a great time to go ahead and get that zipper foot on. Make sure I'm using the matching fabric. I am. So I'm going to use the one that had the longer tail, right? I've got the one here that's the big one, and that big long tail is designed to go up and over your rectangular ring. The rectangular ring also has a very hard to see seam in there, so that's what I like to hide. I should probably trim that away real quick. That looks nice. Now with that, I also found that it's not perfectly pretty on the bottom side of this one, so I'm going to make that the bottom side, or where I stitch that over. Okay. Now for this, let's go ahead and take a moment and put the zipper foot on the machine. The zipper foot's designed to allow you to get in nice and tight against there, but because I have so many layers and not a great starting place because of the shape of this little head, I'm going to have to probably give it a little bit of encouragement. So I'm ready to give it a little push as we get started here. Come on now. There we go. So that's another working trick too. Sometimes that first set of stitches won't work. A little lift on the presser foot, move yourself a stitch or two in, and now I've got the feed system working for me. Now I want this really secure as well, so when I'm close to the edge, I'm going to hit the back stitch button, and I'm literally going to ride this thing all the way back to the other side this time. And release, and do it again. Quick back stitch at the end that time, and that is totally secured. Remember, your instrument or your camera is going to be hanging from this thing, so take the time to make it nice and strong, right? I generally clean all my threads up later on, so we'll make that as tidy as possible, but that head is there, right? So this strap is basically all but done. One of the tricks is getting the head back onto the strap. So we're going to see how this goes. It slides in here, but if I remember correctly, I want to slide it on this direction. We'll see if I get it right the first time today. So it slides down through here, and then the strap basically folds in half. And then the strap itself is going up, back down through that buckle. And you pull it, and voila, just like that, a full functioning, completely adjustable guitar strap. And the last thing I want to tell you about is all guitars have different size strap nuts, they call them, or holders for your strap to go on. So what I do is I choose which guitar it's going to go on, cut the smallest possible hole and the smallest slit, and if your fabric's pretty flexible or flimsy, for lack of a better term, let's stitch around that hole as well to just double secure everything. So I make a small hole, both ends, and slide it right on there. Really, really easy. So here are some of the other options I've created for you here. This is the non-adjustable camera strap. Non-adjustable, so it has two of the short ends, and they're stitched up inside the tube. The tube is the same width, but the nice thing about using a little bit lighter weight leathers or materials down here is I was able to create some really pretty buttonholes on the end, and then just some small cording. These cords will connect the camera to the strap. And then the other thing I did, and this is for my really heavy electric guitars that I have, I've actually taken one of the real guitar straps made from the 2-inch nylon. This tube I just covered the strap with, but I had to make it a little larger. So these were a 4 5/8 to 4 3/4 cut, not the 4 1/2 we used for the other straps. This is my favorite strap because it's really strong, really functional, but super comfortable now. So I know you're all jazzed up to get started making your custom camera strap or your guitar strap, but before you go, I gotta know, what kind of guitar are you gonna hang from the strap that you learned how to make right here on Man Sewing?